Hello, Just Gem here and welcome, or indeed welcome back to my channel. It's been 2 weeks. I said I'd do this every 2 weeks. That was the interval that I settled on. It's about that time for new makeup releases. So I'm going to go through what's come out in the last couple of weeks, or what's going to be coming out very, very shortly, and let you know my thoughts on it, and whether or not I'd be inclined to purchase said new release. My somewhat arbitrary categories are yes, I will buy it, or I have bought it. Yes, if money were no object. This would be when I'm on the cusp of having more money than sense, but I still have some sense. So while I have money in abundance, I'm not going to just buy stuff willy-nilly. But so yes, if money were no object. And then there's no. Just flat out no. Doesn't appeal to me in any way, shape or form. I'm not interested. Even if I had all the money in the world. No. Sometimes I deviate from these somewhat arbitrary categories, but that's part of the fun. So let's see. I'll shimmy over to the side, as I usually do, to give myself some space. I should probably move Kitty. She's probably going to make several appearances throughout this video. It's going to focus on her. Maybe if I just kind of stay like this and hide her. In no particular order, first up, the Blend Bunny / Glisten / Lens collaboration. And I believe the last time I did this video, it had just been announced that there was going to be a collab, and I think they might have... I don't think they had said it was a triple collab, that Lens was involved at that point. It only came out a bit after that. To be perfectly honest, while I've seen a few bits and pieces from Lens before, she's not someone I follow. I'm not overly familiar with her content in general. The palette, I don't think it's for me, and especially after having used a palette very recently with very minimal shimmers in it. This palette's only got 2 shimmers. They're very, very, very nice shimmers. Very nice shimmers. But I would want more. I'd want a higher ratio of shimmers to mattes. Not necessarily that I want a higher ratio of shimmers to mattes. I just want more shimmers in the palette. Maybe up to... I feel like 40% of a palette being made up of shimmers is quite a good proportion. So, and then the other half of the palette, so it's 2, I mean you'll have seen it by now, it's 2 different palettes. One's the Blend Bunny side, and that's the eyeshadow palette. One is the Glisten side, and that's the wet liner side of the palette. And they connect, now you can't see my hands, but they join up magnetically, and each of the pans within the palette are also magnetic. So packaging wise, I think it's clever, it's pretty ingenious, and I love the split packaging where Glisten have got an artist to do their side and Blend Bunny have got an artist to do that side, and they kind of meet in the middle. Generally though, it's not for me. It's not my kind of colour story, not really, and I've never used a wet liner in my life. I've bought one because I purchased one in order to take my purchase over the threshold to get free postage from Glisten Cosmetics when I ordered, I want to say it was Longing. Have I used it since? No. Will I use it? Maybe one day when I'm feeling particularly experimental. Yeah, I'd give it a go. I saw the creator of Glisten do a TikTok live the other day, and she was demoing the liners in the advent calendar, and I did think to myself, they look quite interesting. I'll at least give the one I've got a go, but I'm hardly going to run out and buy an entire palette full of them when I've not even used the tiny little pot I've got once. Beautiful collection. Love most things about it, to be honest, but it's just not a me collection. But congratulations to everyone involved, and to Lens. Like, I know what it must be like and what it must feel like to collab with brands that you're a huge fan of. So congratulations to everyone on the collab. It is excellent. It's just not my cup of tea, so it'd be a no from me. What have we got next? Melt Cosmetics and Bailey Sarian are doing a part 2 of the collab that they did. Was it last year? I can't remember when it was. And it's called Fatally Yours. So it's Fatally Yours the first one. It's now Fatally Yours 2. The colour story is quite... All of a sudden, it's really just thinking of the look I've got on my eyes at the moment. But all of a sudden, I'm seeing a colour story that involves reds and golds and maybe some silvers and almost more vampy colour story happening a lot. So Skulls and Roses, obviously. This one, Fatally Yours, one of the holiday palettes from Odin's Eye, so the Silvery Bliss palette. There's the Ghost Face Returns palette. And I want to say, is there another one? I think those are the main ones. So there's a lot of palettes at the moment that seem to have that kind of colour story. So I don't know if it's just because that's on trend at the moment. But I mean, you don't need them all. And I was very, very tempted to get Silvery Bliss, and I think it was, I don't know how you pronounce it, if it's Cine Reviews or Sinai Reviews, probably none of those, but she did a swatch reel of the Silvery Bliss palette, and I commented saying that I liked it, but I just felt it was too close to the Skulls and Roses, which I just bought, and she said Skulls and Roses are just punchier. It's just got a lot more oomph to it. And I think, having now tried Skulls and Roses, if I was to buy Silvery Bliss, I'd probably be disappointed, going by how I've been feeling about Odin's Eye releases of late and what I've been hearing about the formula. But I've gone around the houses here. Going back to Fatally Yours, and I realise I always focus on the eyeshadow palettes, but that's because generally I'm not interested in anything else in the collection, if I'm perfectly honest. I've not tried anything by Melt. I'd be curious to try it, but I think that's another brand, a bit like Patrick Tar, that's had a few issues here and there with mould. And I don't know about you, I don't fancy buying mouldy makeup. I've also heard that their formula can be somewhat hit and miss. I think Melt is definitely a brand that I will try at some point in the future, but when it comes to the Fatally Yours collection, that's a no from me. That would be an easy palette for me to skip. Nikki Tutorials, her brand Nimya, they've released 2 different things. So they've got these highlighters. There's 3 shades, like a silvery one, a goldy one, and a pinky one. And I'm intrigued. I've never really been massively into highlighter, she says, while glowing. But recently, I have been appreciating it more. Not necessarily your be seen from space type of highlighter, but something that's just going to give you a nice glow on a high point of your face. These ones, I don't know if they would be a bit much, but you can always go in lightly and dial it up accordingly. And these piqued my interest. I was curious. I don't know what the price point is. I can't remember if they were in the description. I'd be intrigued. Especially that Monarch shade. I think it's called Monarch. Have I just made that up? It is called Monarch. I didn't make it up. So maybe I'm most drawn to the Monarch shade because they've got a darker model who appears to be pretty much spot on to my own complexion, or very, very close. But to be honest, all of them interest me. I'm going to put that in yes if money were no object, because I'd be curious to see the price point. Nimya has also got lip toppers. So they're in like a really skinny, like super skinny. I mean, if you're doing your lips, and I mean, I've got quite large lips, so I think I'd be there for a while using that tiny applicator. But they look they're glitter toppers. They're like glitter lip toppers, but you can, I think they're multi-purpose and you can use it on your cheeks if you would want to. And they just look like they would give your lips a lovely, glowy, a bit like a gloss, but a bit balmy. I'd be curious about the formula and the texture, and I think I'd want to see more people using it. But again, the 3 shades that she's releasing do look to be universally flattering. They're almost match the highlighters that she's released, so it kind of makes sense as a dual release. As with the highlighters, I'm going to put this in yes if money were no object. Curious to see the price point, curious to see what bundles they might have. Yes if money were no object. They look pretty. And I mean, in the video where Nikki's demoing them, she's just put a lip liner on and then she's gone in with the lip topper, and they do look cute. So that's those. This looks like some kind of Kim Kardashian release, and it looks boring as just... What about that is exciting? Even the packaging screams boring. No. Who's this? Give Me Glow Cosmetics are releasing a palette called the Bad Witch Club, which I like that. I like that name. On paper, this is a very me colour story. It's got blue, it's got green, it's got purple, but it doesn't have much of anything else. It's then got like a corally shade, a lavender, and a pink. I don't know what I'd do with that on its own. It's cool, the packaging is cute. It's kind of giving me divination vibes, actually. It's giving, yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the divination packaging. It's pretty, it's cute, but I just feel like the colour story is a bit restrictive. So that's not something I would buy. But it did catch my eye, and at first I stopped long enough to watch the reel and, you know, obviously do the screen record for this video. But as pretty as it is, it's just too restrictive. So that would be a no from me. Clarity Rain. So Clarity Cosmetics have released a palette called Clarity Rain. And there's a lot going on in this palette. Where in the where I've just said that the Bad Witch palette is too restrictive because there's not enough in that palette, I feel like Clarity Rain goes too far in the other direction where I don't know where I'd go with that. So how many shades is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by... So 24? I mean, I don't know how Beauty Bay do it, because they do 42 pan palettes, but they're manageable. So they're almost... The colour story is very honed in to the point where some shades are quite similar, but you almost don't mind it because you've paid, in some cases, a tenner for 42 shadows. And, you know, if you hit pan on your favourite, there's a high probability that there's another shade in that palette that looks very similar, so you can just crack on with that. But this is a 24 pan palette that it just seems a little bit all over the place. I get the theming, it's taken on a beach against a sunset, and there are some very nice colours in there, but there's a bit too much going on for me. Like, my eye can't hone in on... I think I'd have to, every time I pull this palette out, I'd have to stare at it for so long it would take me an hour to do my makeup. So as aesthetically pleasing as it is, though a little jumbled, it would be a no from me because there's too much going on in that. Wayne Goss. I love Wayne Goss. He has released some holiday palettes, some mini travel palettes, and they look beautiful. They are very on theme with Christmas because they're red handles, like red glossy metallic looking handles, white fluffy bristles. I am not in the market for brushes, despite the fact I keep putting brushes in my shopping basket on various websites. I don't need them. I don't. I had to really stop myself on TikTok the other day from buying Made by Mitchell's graffiti brushes. They came out not long after I'd just bought his ombre brushes, and I kind of kicked myself because I thought, oh, those are nicer looking. But then I actually looked at the brushes in the set, and there's a good handful of those. I thought to myself, I don't know how I would use that. Every brush that's in the ombre brush kit that I got, I can utilise. There's loads of eye brushes in there, and the face brushes are brushes I could reach for, that I would reach for. There are some odd shapes in those graffiti brushes, so if you look at the video that I've done where I review the Sunset Chaser palette, I talk about the TikTok shop at some length, and that was another impulse buy that I very nearly made, that I had to, give myself a swift slap to the side of the face and be like, come on Gem, you do not need that, and immediately ejected it from my basket again. So brushes, as beautiful as they are, and as much as I like Wayne, it would be a no from me, because I have far too many brushes as it is. The Sunset Chaser palette. I did buy that after just talking about having more money than sense. My sense clearly went out the window when I purchased this, so I did buy it. It's the Sunset Chaser palette, and it came with this vanity case, which I suppose is kind of cute, whatever. And it's terrible. So I wholly regret buying it. So it's a yes because I bought it, but I wish I hadn't, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, word of warning, don't buy it. Just don't buy it. And if you want to see why, go and watch Friday's video. What's next? This is funny. Okay. Lethal Cosmetics have been teasing for quite some time now their upcoming release, the Spellcraft palette, and they were hyping it up as like a purple toned palette, and they sort of teased a few shades, and one of them being Cauldron, I believe, and I was like, okay, my interest is piqued. As an avid fan of purple, I'm interested. I think Cauldron is the only true purple shade in that palette. Not only that, but it looks, in my humble opinion, exceptionally similar to Midnight Serenade. For me, they're too close to have both. I might swap a few shades here and there to sort of make my ideal palette, but I think if I was going to choose out of the two, I'd go Midnight Serenade. And Black Friday's coming up, and Lethal have said themselves when they restocked Midnight Serenade, buy it now or wait for the sale. Well, I'll wait for the sale then, thanks. Now, I don't know if I will pick up Midnight Serenade in the sale. It's on the list, but it's down at the bottom. So if my purchases are creeping up and it's getting too much, it would be one of the first ones to get cut. Spellcraft, absolutely not. No. I've got to give it to them on the packaging. I do like the packaging, but at the same time, sometimes pretty packaging like that makes palettes harder to store. It's like one of my gripes with, Pat McGrath's 6-pan palettes that she's done, and they've got like this tri-fold packaging. Nice, but not practical when it comes to storage. They just don't align, and it's really frustrating. So I loved it when she did the 6-pan Star Wars palettes, and they were the normal lifty flappy design, that very technical term. Spellcraft, easy pass for me. Easy pass. And the thing that also made me laugh is I was talking to Red Panda Sue on Instagram, and we were exchanging messages, and she was on the live where people were just saying, isn't that just Midnight Serenade again? And apparently people were really sort of going for the Lethal team who are on the live saying, what is this, and expressing their disappointment. On Lethal's reveal reel, I said, it's pretty, but is no one else experiencing an odd sense of deja vu? That comment has since attracted quite a few likes, which has amused me greatly, and Lethal have actually responded to my comment. Spellcraft and Midnight Serenade are both moody and on the darker side, which is why they make a great pair. Spellcraft, however, is overall cooler toned and is made up of purples, silvers and cool neutrals, and the metallics are very, very different. There's a lot more textures, including some stunning multichromes and pure metals. Midnight Serenade, on the other hand, has light pinks, neutrals, mauves and burgundy shades, and then a bit of an emoji that looks a bit like an exasperated face. Not only that, but they also took the time to DM me, so I must have really rubbed them up the wrong way. Oh, they just DM me the exact same thing. Well, not the exact same thing. This has got a wavy hand and no exasperated emoji. But I do feel it's quite amusing that they not only responded to my comment, but then sent me a DM about it. It's like, it's fine. I mean, I don't know why you're going to such lengths. I'm not suddenly going to go, oh my god, really? Give me 10. I'd be very intrigued for someone to do side-by-side swatches. I don't know, Spellcraft perhaps looks like it might be on the cooler side, while Midnight Serenade is ever so slightly warmer. That might be one of the main differences. But it's a no. It is a no. Luna Beauty, so this is Manny MUA's brand, and they're doing a day and night collection where, as the name might suggest, you've got 2 palettes which you can join magnetically if you would want to. It might make it a bit bulky, but I guess it's kind of cute way to keep them together. I don't know if there's enough. Some of the images I've seen are quite washed out, so it's difficult to see the true colours in this palette. And then I've done a screenshot of a reel, but I don't know if that's overly saturated. The day side, I think, is a bit too light for me, for my personal preference. The night side does look like it is a bit deeper, as the name implies, but it just looks a bit... And haven't they done a palette which has all of these tones in it already? I mean, the night palette, perhaps. The shimmers, it's 9 shades in each palette. The shimmers do look pretty, but I don't know if you could do enough with those 9 shades. That would be a no for me. It's quite a nice concept. It's not a bad little collection. If you're a neutral lover, it might be right up your alley, but it's just not striking enough for me. Cosmic Brushes / Beauty have released, I think I might have mentioned this in my last one. I should probably rewatch my last new releases just so I can see where I got up to, but I can normally tell from the screenshots that I take. So I think they had announced their mystery box. I'm not a fan of mystery boxes because there's too much scope to get stuff that you're not going to like. And having seen the contents of the box, I'm very glad I didn't buy the mystery box. I think I probably will get the palette in there. Editing gem here. I think when I was recording this, I had in mind that I was not going to show an image of the palette. However, at this point, I think most people will have seen the Sinister palette. If you haven't, I'm giving you warning now if you are looking at your screen, because I'm aware you might be pottering in the house. If you don't want to see the palette, now would be the time to look away. So I'll flash the palette up and then I will tell you when it is safe to look again. Now's the time to look away. And it's off the screen. Welcome back. The colour story isn't necessarily one that jumps out at me as a colour story that I think I would love, but I think it would urge me to be a bit more creative, a bit like the Skulls and Roses palette that I've just tried. It doesn't look like anything I own. Cosmic is a brand that I rate, and there's just something about the artistry of that palette that I'm curious about. So I do believe it's coming to TikTok Shop. They're going to have a very limited release of the entire box, and then there's going to be a small amount of the palettes on their own to purchase as well. So I will pick that up. Cosmic have also announced that they're doing a Christmas collection. So it's going to have a palette, and I'm loving the colours. It's like this reddy burgundy packaging, and it's going to be 2 lipsticks, 2 blushes and an eyeshadow palette, and the palette is called 'Tis the Season. Well, the collection is called 'Tis the Season, and it's also the name of the palette. I'm intrigued. I'm looking forward to seeing the colour story of this. If this image is anything to go by, I'm envisaging golds, reds, greens. But that could be there to throw us off completely. Maybe you open it up and it's got blues, silvers, purples in there. But I'm intrigued for the reveal. And again, I rate Cosmic, and providing I like the colour story, I suspect I'll end up picking that up. So I'm gonna say yes. Unless it's not even if money were no object, unless I open up the palette and go, ugh. Not open it up because I won't have it, but unless the reveal comes and it makes me go, ugh. But most people have said they've opened it and gasped. But then most people said that about Nomad Speakeasy, and I wasn't keen on that. A new brand has caught my eye, and they're called Titanium Foxes, and they're a French indie brand. And they've got 2 palettes out already, Poppy Storm and Poppy Quiet, and I think I'm likely to pick those up. I commented on one of their images asking if they'd have any kind of discount for Black Friday, and they said that they would. So in fact, what I might do is sit down and have a look at each 3 of the colour stories of the 3 palettes and decide from there which one I like the best, because I'm curious to try the formula. But from all the pictures that I've seen, I'm really intrigued because it doesn't look like anything I've tried before. Maybe it's the images, I don't know, but there's just something about how this formula appears that really interests me. So those are the ones they've already got. And then the 3rd palette that they're releasing, and they're experiencing delays. I think they should have had it by now to release, but they don't have the stock yet. But the 3rd palette is called Grackle Chat. And yeah, there's just something about the brand that has me intrigued. I really want to try them. And again, much easier for me to get my hands on than a lot of the US brands. So yeah, really curious about Titanium Foxes, and I'll be keeping an eye on them in 2025 definitely. So Grackle Chat, would I buy it? I'll put that in yes if money were no object. I'm gonna look at the Poppy palettes first. I know that they come as a bundle as well as individually, so let me see what the discount is on the bundle for Black Friday, and then I'll make a decision as to whether I'm going to buy the bundle, just buy 1 palette, or because I want to test it out first. Like, I don't want to just buy all 3 blindly. Plus Grackle Chat isn't actually available yet, so I'll put it in yes if money were no object, pending trying the Poppy palettes, or one of the Poppy palettes, and seeing if I like the formula. Unearthly have released a palette, and it does fall a little bit into that category I was talking about with the Melt and Bailey palette and the Skulls and Roses and Odin's Eye Silvery Bliss. It's kind of got that grungy red feel, At least at first glance it looked like that, but then as I started to look at it a bit more, it looked a bit different. Like it's got these greens in there. Like it's grungy and vampy, but in a different way to the way that Skulls and Roses is grungy and vampy. This might be one that I would buy if it was easy for me to get hold of Unearthly Cosmetics. Like I really, really want to try the formula. I've heard really, really good things about the Unearthly Cosmetics formula. That colour story does intrigue me. Like I like the grunginess of it. But then looking at it, I don't know, would I be able to dupe that with earthy? Not the purples. I could probably dupe that, but it would require multiple palettes. And as I say, I do want to try the Unearthly formula. Gargoyle was one that I would skip because it's to me it's too similar to Culturals. But this, I feel, is different enough to anything that I do have. So that would be a yes if money were no object for me. So we're swinging back round to Artitude Cosmetics. I know I mentioned them in the last roundup. At that point they had announced that they had 2 palettes coming up, but we hadn't had any reveals yet. At this point we've had the reveal of Vintage Neutrals, and it's a yes from me. I really, really enjoyed Metamorph. I really like the formula in that. If they've happened to have improved the formula, excellent. If it's the same, I'd be happy with that. And I really like this colour story. I think it's really, really pretty. I think the name is appropriate, Vintage Neutrals, but it does have some colour to it. It's not just your bog standard neutral tones. It does have pops of colour in there, but it's not like neutral with a pop of blue. I think I'd enjoy that, so I'm saying yes to that. Still waiting on the release of Urban Neutrals, and I'm going to show a picture of there's like a Pantone image that Rooks shared, the inspiration for Urban Neutrals. I don't know if that will end up looking too similar to some things that I might already have. Like, is it going to have Culturals vibes maybe? I'm saying yes to Vintage Neutrals. Let's see the reveal of Urban Neutrals. If I like the colour story as much as Vintage Neutrals, it's a yes. Based on the formula, I definitely want to try more Artitude, but I just need to see the colour story. DD Signature has released, today is the pre-release. The day I'm filming is the day of the pre-release, and it's a palette called Fearless Holiday, and it looks beautiful. It really, really does. I saw a story from A Little Bit of Gold and Glitter, and in it she mentioned that she loved all the rows, but the final row was a letdown for her because that first column, it's all shimmers, and then you've got cocoa at the bottom. Why isn't there another shimmer there? And that cocoa shade needs to move across and just get rid of Soft Phase, which is like a random beige. I do feel that that shade is out of place. Like, I did spot that. The perfectionist in me was thrown off by the fact that cocoa wasn't a shimmer shade. Not that I want a shimmery brown, but the shade in that spot should be a shimmer, and I just don't think Soft Phase belongs in there. And that's exactly what A Little Bit of Gold and Glitter said in her story, so I just had to reply and be like, yeah, 100% agree with that critique. Does it detract from the rest of the palette? A little bit. I do feel like it's thrown the balance off, not having a shimmer shade in that spot. I don't know what the thinking was with that, because it's so balanced otherwise. And then it just seems odd that you've got this super, super colourful palette and a beige. I don't know if it's been put in there as some kind of blending shade. It looks so stark in comparison to the beautiful, colourful tones in there, and then you've just got this beige. It's a beautiful colour story, and I think I'd put this firmly in if money were no object, because again, it's a US indie brand, and I don't even want to think about how much it would cost to ship it to me. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. The owner did a look when she was talking about the launch of the palette, and just looking at her look made me want the palette, so great advertising from her there. Ensley Rain have announced a palette and given the reveal, and the palette is called Light in Your Eyes, and the artwork is actually very pretty, and for once they've got an actual artist and they haven't just used AI. So I do think that that's very pretty. Does it still look somewhat AI created? I don't know. But it is striking. It's quite muted for an Ensley Rain colour story. Like when I'm thinking of, is it Cosmic Dreamer and they've got Strawberry Moon. Like generally the colour stories that I've seen popping up from Ensley Rain have been very bold, very bright, very colourful. This is a very neutral leaning palette. I don't think I've seen swatches yet. I'd be curious to see the swatches. I haven't tried Ensley Rain yet. The price point of Ensley Rain is one reason I haven't tried them, and obviously the cost of getting it to me is another. So I'd put that firmly in the yes if money were no object category. Pending reviews. I want to see what people think about it and what people think about the mattes and how the shimmers perform. It's neutral without being boring. See, like the Lunar Beauty in comparison is boring. It just is. Whereas this has got a bit more substance. So it's very neutral, but then there's a bit of a green in there. There's a little bit of purple in there. There's just a bit more to it. And you could it's probably the sheer number of shades in there, but it's not an overwhelming amount. Like I don't look at that and panic and think I don't know what I would do with it. I think it's very, very pretty. So I think, yeah, yes if money were no object. And I think that's everything. Oh wait, no, there's one more. There's a bonus one. This is one that I came across last night, and this was interesting. So there is a glitter mascara from Maybelline. So it's their Sky High range, and it's a topper. So you apply your mascara and then you go in with this glitter mascara topper, and it looks pretty. So I'm going to insert a screen record that I've done of Makeup by Tammy applying this glitter topper mascara, and it is pretty, but it's one of those, it's very festive, isn't it? I think you'd use it over Christmas, and then when would you use it again? And bearing in mind, mascara is one of those products that you're supposed to throw away after 6 months. And apart from eyeshadow, when I'm applying things that close to my eye, more eyeliners I'd say, I am a bit more strict about how long I keep an eye product like that. Plus mascaras dry out. I've just thrown out a Benefit Mini that I had because it had dried out. It's probably due throwing it out, to be fair. Yes if money were no object, because there's I just think that's fun, but I just think it's too seasonal. That's not something that you're going to be using on a daily basis, but it's not an everyday item, but it's cute. If money were no object, yes, I would buy it. And I say that, I mean, how much is it going to end up being? I can't imagine it's more than a tenner. Should I buy it just to see? If it goes heavily discounted, which maybe after the festive season it will, maybe I'll get it just to try it out. But I'm still, yeah, if money were no object. If money were no object. Now I think I've covered everything. I think 2 weeks is reasonable. I mean, that was a lot, but I don't know if that's because we're coming up to Christmas, so this is the final push of people releasing products in an attempt to be purchased and stuffed in someone's Christmas stocking. But I think 2 weeks is a good interval. A good interval. It's not too much, and I suspect it'll be interesting to see how many releases there are in December. And then again, how many releases there are in January. I suspect that there'll be very, very slow months, but we'll see. We'll see. I hope you found that video useful. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch, and hopefully I'll see you again in a video in a not too distant future. Take care. Bye.